Hello everybody, welcome to the new episode of the MaffmanJones Movie Show. I am your host, John Maffio, and I am drinking my sorrows away. The NFL has returned to us, and it's one of my favorite sports to watch, one of my favorite sports to play. I played it for 4 years in high school, and I am already a mess. My fantasy football team, all three of them, suck. The opening game, I had Aaron Rodgers, and it was just the worst. He looks slow and repugnant out there. And you had the Patriots and the Steelers game tonight, and I had Juju, and the Giants got steamrolled by the Cowboys at their own home. I don't know. I think I need to take a break from life. It's an emotional roller coaster every year with the NFL, and this year just feels like I got hit with a piano. This team hasn't been playing well, and we're trying to rebuild. We have Saquon Barkley, which is great, but Daniel Jones starting behind Eli Manning and Kyle Lacotta, whatever, Regatha Cheese, whatever his name is. But yeah, all in all, the NFL season starting off such a great start. I just can't wait to see what else happens with the rest of the season in the NFL. New York Football Giants, please help us, Lord. Oh, it's gonna be a long 4 months. But anyway, I'm not here to talk about the football games because nobody wants to hear me talk about the NFL here. This is a movie show. You want to hear me talk about movie stuff. And the only thing I really thought would be fun to talk about this week would be It Chapter 2. It released this past weekend, and I saw it on opening night. It's almost 3 hours. It's a 2 hour and 49-minute long movie. Long movie. The only other thing worth mentioning right now is that TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival, is going on, and a lot of movies are being premiered there, and Knives Out's getting critical acclaim up the wazoo. I've also heard good things about The Lighthouse. They're also premiering Jojo Rabbit as I speak right now. A lot of good movies apparently coming out, and we are right in the midst of awards season, so a lot of these big movies are going to get a lot of talk and attention, and I don't get invited to anything because I don't have popularity or anything, so I got to see things on the weekend that they come out. And that's okay with me. It's cool with me. I'm just saying. A lot of people on Twitter, if you're on Twitter and social media and film Twitter, people like to get their opinions out there ASAP and big. And it's really awesome. Like, I'm glad and happy for people who get to see these movies early. But I just scroll through nothing but early screener reactions to movies I want to see. And it makes me sad because I wish I could do the same thing. But I'm just stuck here not doing that. For now, maybe in the future, who knows, it'd be nice. So let's talk about It Chapter 2. So this movie is also directed by Andy Muschietti, who does make a cameo in the movie. Hint, hint, not going to say where or when, but if you know what Andy Muschietti looks like, look out for him in this movie. And this is the second chapter. It's a long book, so they split this movie up into two films. The first one was primarily focusing on the kids, and this one is about them as adults coming back 27 years later to get the job done and destroy Pennywise once and for all. And if you've read the book or you have read up on the Pennywise character or it or Stephen King in general, you know that it's just a batshit crazy novel. And obviously, if you read the book, you know that Pennywise isn't really a clown. It's a cosmic entity that it's an enigma in the sense where it could change into anything that people or children fear. It doesn't necessarily stay as one particular thing. It alters and changes to whatever, usually a child because they're tastier when they're scared, what they fear most. 27 years later, the Old Spice dude, Isaiah Mustafa, he never left Derry, Maine. Everybody else did, and everybody else moved on with their lives. Most of them in this movie apparently very successful people outside of Derry. But Old Spice dude he spent all of his life researching on this entity and how it's been just preying and feeding on this town and this world for millions of years. It's been around for a long time, and he basically calls upon the rest of the Losers Club to come back so they can remember what happened here and fight this thing and destroy it once and for all. And that's basically the plot of the movie. And for a long movie, a whole lot of nothing happens. I mentioned this when I saw it in theaters with my friends and my girlfriend and my brother, but it feels like it's just a rapid succession of the same scene over and over again with different characters and different scenarios. So you have it is in a way a really fun haunted house thriller where you have like these spooky things happening to characters, and it's just like boo, ooh, but there's not a lot of story happening. Basically, I'm not spoiling the movie, but it's the goal that's trying to be achieved here can happen in less than an hour and a half. The story is being told. I'm sure a lot more is going on. The book is so long that you have to adapt it for audiences in theaters, and I don't think it was done as well in execution as the first movie was in part one. I feel like this is almost an endurance test. Especially if you're not enjoying the movie, then it will feel like you're in this theater forever. But I do think the standouts, the strongest things about it, Chapter 2, are its cast, are especially like the Bill Skarsgård who plays Pennywise, the entire cast, adult cast of Losers Club, the returning child actors who return to play the younger versions of those characters. Visually, I think there's a lot of CGI, but the CGI is well done. It's cartoony and weird and campy, but it didn't deter from the experience for me. I really enjoyed all that stuff. And I know what I was getting myself into, because there's a lot of that in the first one too. Just crazy, goofy shit. So you get a lot of goofy shit in this one too, but there are some genuinely terrifying moments. And when the horror is strong, it really does hit in a really visceral way. But there are a couple parts too where it isn't quite that way too. So it's mostly hit, but a couple times it misses too, especially with humor. Bill Hader is great in this movie. He has the best arc, I think, out of every loser. But there are a couple parts where I feel like they tried to use the levity with his character to the detriment of the film itself, and it undercut what actual emotional moments were happening here. There are a couple parts where I feel like something very dangerous and scary is happening to somebody, where they're actually on the verge of death or whatever, and we have this stupid joke that happens immediately after, and it just took me out of the scene, because it was really... There's one scene that involves the older version of Eddie, the one who doesn't like germs. He's played by James Ransone, who is in the Sinister movies, and he's great, but there's a scene with him and the adult version of Henry, the bully, who was psychotic in this movie too, and I feel like he didn't need to be in this movie, but whatever. Something happens between them, an altercation, and it was the weirdest turn of events in that scene. I didn't understand it. There's a use of a song in a really terrifying moment that made no sense at all to me. Tonally, I'm like, why are they trying to make us laugh here? I didn't get the joke. But when the movie's doing well at telling a story, it really does do well. I really like the entire third act of the movie. If you've seen the old television series from 1990, it's similar, but also does a lot more. It also has a bigger budget, so it looks a lot nicer visually, a lot more pleasant, and it obviously is a little more scarier visually what they could do with Pennywise as a character. But it also does feel like that big third act that you see in all these blockbuster movies that you've come to expect time and time again. So if you're into it, cool. If you're not, you're not. I was into it personally because I liked seeing these characters fight against what they were fighting against in that moment. And when the emotions hit in the third act, I felt those emotional moments too, because the acting was so strong and I cared about these characters. Even though you don't get much from development from the adult versions of the Losers Club. I said it on other social media platforms, but I do really, what I keep coming back to is that I feel like I really do adore and enjoy looking back on them, individual scenes, a lot of them in this movie, but having them spliced together doesn't make for the most coherent narrative, or even from a pacing perspective too. I feel like all of this stuff together doesn't really mesh all that well. If you've seen the trailer, there's a moment with a little girl under the bleachers of some baseball game and Pennywise that is probably my favorite scene of the entire movie, because we get a lot of what we saw with Pennywise in the beginning of part 1, which was with him and Georgie at the sewer. Felt the exact same way about this scene. It was extremely engaging. I really enjoyed the dialogue exchanges between both of these characters, and I just really enjoyed Bill Skarsgård just hamming it up, but really bringing something to the Pennywise character. And unfortunately, we don't really get a scene where we get fleshed out dialogue or acting like that for the rest of the movie. You get moments and little pieces of Bill Skarsgård playing Pennywise, really doing something interesting and special and fun, but you don't really get any more like really grand moments where it just holds on this character doing it. But that's, again, this is based on a novel, so they had to go by the novel standards, but it would have been nice to see more Pennywise doing Pennywise things, I guess. This movie is a very simple movie when you get down to the bare bones plot of part 2, but it takes such a long time getting to where it's trying to go, and I feel like there could have been I'm not the one who made the movie, but if I was in charge, I feel like there's a different way they could have went about making this part 2, and because the heart of the story is actually very well realized. I feel like the heart was there, and I feel like that Andy Muschietti is really doing his best to tell a great story here with characters that we can care about, because it worked in part one. It's one of my favorite movies of 2017. I really love that movie, but it doesn't quite translate to this version because we don't really get these adult versions of these loser characters developed enough. And when we see Pennywise, it's great because we love seeing Pennywise, but ultimately it doesn't really lead to anything great. Although I do think this movie does come home, it doesn't stick the landing with the last couple scenes, and being a Stephen King self, it reminded me of a couple of Stephen King novels or Stephen King stories I've seen before, but in a good way, where it kind of ended like, oh, that was sweet. I would definitely recommend this to people who enjoyed part one and people who are interested in seeing how this whole thing ends. But if you didn't enjoy the first one, then I would definitely not see how this one concludes. If you like Pennywise the Clown, you get some of him here, but not in the entire movie, and you'll definitely be bored for a majority of the movie. Even though the entire film, there's never really a dull moment, but if you're not engaged in the story, there's nothing keeping you here for the whole runtime. There's a lot of moving parts with individual characters, and it literally just goes individual character scene 1, individual character scene 2, individual character scene 3, and it just does that over and over where it becomes redundant. And even somebody who's interested in this movie, I could see becoming bored by what's going on screen. So if you're not interested, you're definitely not going to enjoy your experience with this. Once again, I have to commend the cast. The cast is what keeps this movie going in such a strong, engaging way from beginning to end. Visually, Andy Muschietti kills it. The music is also great. I love the returning themes from the first movie, and I think a lot of this music is just very pleasant to listen to. Comedically, some things made me laugh, but I feel like it got in the way of the actual movie a lot of the time too, and I feel like it's trying to have its cake and eat it too, where it's trying to be a really satisfying horror movie but also be funny and really give people everything too, like a Marvel movie does, I guess. That Marvel formula where it's like telling a good story but also making you laugh and feel everything, like the 4-quadrant movie. But this doesn't do that correctly, in a sense where I don't think it really fit for this movie. There are moments that are funny, like they really genuinely work because the characters are great, and Bill Hader especially really makes it work. But there are even with Bill Hader, there are moments where I felt like they were forcing a ha-ha moment when it wasn't necessary. It just made the movie cringeworthy to watch in that moment where you're like, why would they do that? Why would they make that creative decision in that moment? But overall, It Chapter 2, it's not bad. It's satisfying where it needs to be. They did a decent job at translating this novel to the big screen and telling a satisfying story for people who are a fan of the novel and people who are just engaged in this particular film adaptation itself. So I would recommend it to any It fans out there and people who are interested in seeing the movie. But if you didn't like the first one, or you're not, you just see this and you go, maybe not, then I would lean towards don't do it. Just don't. But yeah, that's really it for today's video. Thank you for watching this episode of the MaffmanJones Movie Show. Let me know what you thought of It Chapter 2 if you saw it in theaters. Also, it had a pretty good box office opening globally. Apparently made over 180 million worldwide. So I wouldn't be surprised if they actually try to make this into like a spin-off thing. I don't know if they make a third movie that takes place before the events of all of this. Maybe we see Pennywise in Derry hundreds of years ago, or maybe they make, I don't know, Pennywise like this Freddy Krueger character where we see him in the early 1900s or something, with like witty, snappy, like Newsies kids. I don't know. Did you feel like the runtime was too long and they could have trimmed down some scenes, or would have seen like a 4-hour movie if it was out there in theaters? Also, if you enjoy football, what's your football team and how are they doing, and are you okay? Are you a Giants fan? Because I'm sorry. If you're a Jets fan, I'm also sorry. And if you have fantasy football, how are you doing in fantasy football? If you're doing good, please let me know, because it'll make me feel better that my teams suck. But if your team's doing good, it'll make me feel better, because I like hearing that from other people. And that's really it. Again, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, ring that bell, and leave a comment. Please do all that, because it makes me very happy, and I love all of you. Thank you very much. See y'all later. Toodaloo.